Thank you. Now we're really on.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rye Town Council meeting of August 18th, 2022. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, to the republic, for which it stands, one indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage. Grant us the wisdom to make every decision fair-minded in the best interests of all its residents. Amen.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Pamela Jaffe.
I'm here,
Oh,
believe it or not.
yes.
Pam is here via Zoom from another land.
Oh, how nice. Councilperson Jill Axelrod.
Here.
Councilperson Thomas Nardi.
Here.
Councilperson Lindsay Ann Jackson.
Here.
And Supervisor Gary Zuckerman.
Here. Minutes of July 21, 2022. Unless there are any objections or corrections, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Boy, Jill, you're gonna have to say it before we finish, because you're coming in way late.
She might be a little delayed.
I know. I'm kidding. Okay, we have a presentation from Joellen Cademartori. Hope I said that right. Joellen, are you here?
Cademartori, close.
Cademartori, okay. I stand corrected. You've all received the proposed compensation and classification study. Joellen, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening to all of you. I have a brief presentation that I will go over for you. And let me share my screen so you can see it. So you have the presentation or the proposal. So I wasn't going to necessarily go through that in significant detail. What I thought I would do was hit the highlights and talk a little bit about GovHR USA, talk about the project components of a classification and compensation study, talk about the benefits of doing a project like this for you to consider, what happens after the project is over as far as the aftermath is concerned and the support that we provide to you, our experience at GovHR and GovTemps USA, and who we are and why you might want to consider us to help you with this, and then really what do we need from you and why do I think maybe you want to consider bringing us in to help you with this. And then of course I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So GovHR USA, we are a firm that works with local governments. We have several practice areas. We do executive recruiting. We've done several in Westchester County. I'm actually working with New Rochelle right now on the city manager search. So we do executive recruiting. We do management consulting for local governments, HR consulting, of which this study is the classification and compensation piece. And I manage that practice of our company. We also do professional development, and then we have a separate company called GovTemps USA where we provide temporary staffing to local governments. So if you ever found yourself in need of a police chief or something like that, we could help you with that. So it's very unique and to local government. I co-own the company with both companies with Heidi Voorhees, so we're a woman-owned business. We've been in existence since 2011 with GovTemps, and GovHR has been around since the 70s. It had a couple of name changes, but we changed it to GovHR in 2014. So we work with many people in local government. We work with local governments around the country, and we have many employees that are both regular employees as well as 1099 consultants that work with us. And you can see that they're all around the country. So we have people that are, joining us from New England, to the down south, to the Midwest, and, out west, actually in Arizona. So we're very fortunate that we have many people affiliated with us. And the reason why I tell you that is when we do a study like a classification and compensation study, if I ever want to bring in a technical expert to help us with anything, we have access to people like that, which is good. So what is this study? What is classification and compensation? So the first part of it is really looking at RIE and looking at communities that we would determine to be comparable. And the reason for that is when we're studying compensation, we want to make sure that we're looking at other communities pretty much in Westchester County. I'd be surprised if we went outside of Westchester County about certain criteria to determine how comparable they are. So we will look at population, we will look at proximity, but in New York State, we'll determine other financial factors, per capita income, maybe your equalized assessed value, total budget, to determine which communities are most like you from a financial perspective, and then request salary information from them. And then we will analyze that data and make sure that it really is relevant to the positions that we're looking at in RIE. So that's the compensation side of the study. And then the classification side is we will look at your positions. We will have a questionnaire. We will have a kickoff meeting with the employees. We will explain to them what job analysis is and how we go through that process. We have them fill out a questionnaire. We interview them. And the reason why we interview them is because even though, you know, we've worked in local government, I worked in local government for many years. I did not work in New York State. I worked in Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Illinois. And even though I understand the work, we don't know how you do your work there. So that interview piece to really make the study unique to RIE is very important because it allows us to take all the nuances into consideration when we're classifying jobs. So having employee meetings, having them fill out a questionnaire, and talking with them is the classification piece. So we have a classification and compensation study, and these are the components of the study. You know, pretty much basically broken down, but that's essentially what we would be helping you with. And then what are the benefits of doing something like this? So the first thing I thought about was the comparability. So thinking about communities to which you want to compare and helping, allowing us to help you set those through our comparability analysis helps you not only from the perspective of studying compensation, but if there's other things. So going through that analysis would be beneficial to see where you stack up with other communities in Westchester County. Internal equity would be established by doing a new classification plan. And what that is, it allows us to compare the positions to each other in the town to make sure that we are classifying them correctly. And what internal equity is when we classify jobs that have similar complexity overall, similar knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform the work, end up in the same pay grade, and that's what internal equity is. And that moves into the next point, which is pay equity. So any positions that are in the same grade should have the same pay range. So by virtue of doing something like this, you achieve pay equity. And we talked a little bit about this, with staff with RIE who've been terrific about whether or not New York State has a law about that yet. I don't think you do. Other states do. So if you ever have a pay equity law enacted, which really focuses on gender pay equity, this system will comply with that. So you'll be ahead of the game if that ever happens. And then pay competitiveness. So as you all know, it is an employer's market right now. And we want to make sure that your pay is competitive enough to attract and retain people. So that doesn't mean that when your fiscal year is over and you start a new fiscal year in January, that your pay is going to increase significantly. We can structure a salary survey to find out what those other communities are doing. So a general increase isn't necessarily a cost of living increase. So we will study that and we can make a recommendation to help you stay competitive. Because as you know, when you have turnover, when you have vacant positions, that costs you. And if you do have high turnover, to bring somebody in, to advertise, recruit, bring people in, it can be costly for a community. So having some competitiveness based on a philosophy pay philosophy that you want to have would be beneficial for the town. And then the last point is the durability. When you do a study like this, it should be able to last you 5-10 years or more. So this will do that. One of the things, and I'll talk about it in the project aftermath, is just making sure that the town is comfortable with the system, it's supported, and as long as you're maintaining it, it will last you for many years. So an investment that you make now, you can continue to use it for a period of time, a minimum 5 years. The only reason why it would be around 5 years would be if for some reason Rye added a whole bunch of positions and you needed to restudy it. But I don't anticipate that happening. So it should last a lot longer than that. So as far as the aftermath is concerned, one thing that's important for us is that you know how to use the system. So I'm available, to you and to the town staff for a year or so after the project's completed. We don't charge you for that. It's important for me that you're comfortable with it. If you decide you need to change a job or add a job or, remove a job, and there's questions, I'm available for that. It could be a phone call, email, it could be Zoom, it doesn't matter. The idea is that this is something that you continue to use, to maintain that classification plan, which is important because there's just so many things that you want to take into consideration with your positions, make sure that they're classified correctly and paid competitively. And then we do provide materials to you. We have a manual that explains our whole system. The questionnaire that we use to evaluate the positions becomes a property of the town because we share that in the classification and compensation manual. And then we make sure that you have the scoring tool in order to classify jobs in the future. So all of that is in a nice manual, and we give that to the town at the conclusion of the study. And then we train everyone. So I say we train everyone, but anyone who works with us through a study knows by the end of it exactly what they need to do going forward, because it's really a joint effort. There is some time that is needed with the town staff as we go through this process, and there's a lot of communication back and forth. So by the end of it, I think they're usually pretty comfortable with the system. So, when you do a study like this, it really is a partnership and it's fluid. I'm very comfortable working with clients when sometimes, think about COVID. I had clients say, we just have to stop. We got to put this on the back burner, and we'll pick it up when we can. So it is a fluid process, but there is a commitment, it does take some time. So, having a key contact person or people with whom we can work with is important. We need information from you in order to get the study started, job descriptions, classification plan, whatever you have, we need to take a look at that. And then we just need some help, facilitating meetings, the kickoff meeting, the interviews, sending out the salary survey. We do all the work, but we find that if somebody from the town makes the ask of a colleague in another community for information, it's better received than a random consultant asking for the same information. So we get it all ready. It's basically just hit forward on email and send it out. And then, of course, just disseminating information. So when this whole project would be concluded, there's a report, there's information. If you wanted me to present it to you in detail and go through all the components of it, and everything we found, just setting that up, just similar to today, just making sure that you have the information and that we can have a discussion about it. And then just about us, GovHR, we've worked in local government. I worked in the field for 24 years. My business partner was 17 years, and she's been consulting longer than I have been, and I've been consulting since 2011. And we have subject matter, experts from public safety to public works to community development to finance. So we can pull people in. I worked in general management, so I have a general understanding of how a local government works. But every once in a while, there's something technical that I might say, hey, can you take a look at this? So we have that, and that I think that's helpful for our clients. We also have done a ton of this work. We've done this work all over the country, and we use the same tool. So our tool is applicable everywhere. It's designed for local governments, but actually I'm working with 2 council of governments right now, one in Connecticut, one in Pennsylvania. So it is tested, and it is very, very applicable to all of the positions. And then just these statistics here, we have a lot of repeat clients. So 28% of our clients come back to us for more work, but 45% come back to us for more and more work. So, we have clients that have 10 jobs with us, so once we start working with clients, we form a relationship, and they might say, oh, you do recruiting, can you help us with that? Or we need a temporary person. So we like to build relationships with our clients, and we are a pretty full service firm for local governments. So we're pretty proud of that statistics. The other thing with our class and comp studies is that they do get implemented. If you look on our website, we have a client tab, and there's a map of the United States, and you can click on any state, and then you can sort it by the type of study, and you can see all the class and comp studies that we've done, or just compensation studies, and they get implemented. I don't think I've had one client that hasn't implemented it. And so that's because I think we really work with you. We want to make sure that we hear you, we understand the things that are important, and we tailor your system, and not the system so much, but the study and the compensation plan to your community and the goals that you're trying to achieve. So that again, tailoring the study to your expectations, we listen and we'll work with you on what you want to achieve. And then if you do want to talk with people about our work, please do that. Actually, last night, town of Mamaroneck, approved our study. So we'll be working with them. They're right in your neighborhood, on their class and comp study as well. So we're happy about that. And just to really get to know New York a little bit better from this perspective, really not the methodology of doing the classification, but the compensation piece, because that always changes a little bit from state to state. And then the last thing is just, we like what we do, and we care about local government. And this is a very emotional process for people. So we know that, we understand that. You're talking about the work that people do, the fact that most employees take a lot of pride in what they do, and their compensation. So we're very sensitive to that. And we want to make sure that that, because we have conversations with them, and we do care, we do care about that. And I think that's reflected in our references, and what, when an employee sits down and you can have a conversation and somebody's like, oh, they really understand what I do. I think that's pretty meaningful for people. So it kind of takes a little bit of the angst out of a study like this for your employees. So that's my general overview. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the proposal or the approach, or anything else that you would like to cover.
The questions that I have, Joellen, is the question came up about benefits. Will you help us understand if the benefits offered by the town of Rye are comparable to benefits within our comparable communities?
Yes, so we did not quote on a benefits survey, which is it's another part of a salary survey. And usually if you wanted us to look at that, because the compensation is base compensation. So if you said, okay, can you tell us, how do we stack up with our payment or our contribution to health insurance, or paid leave, or an educational incentive, or any other stipends, or whatever it is, we'll usually go up to about 10 benefits. And the example of I think one report that we gave you from Ferndale, Michigan, they included benefits in there. So it's not a total compensation study. It's a review of your benefits. And so we'll get that information from other communities. We'll put it into a spreadsheet. You get a lot of detail in case you really want to drill into it. And then we will give you an overview to say, Rye is pretty comparable with regard to the contributions to your health insurance, but over here on paid leave, other communities offer more holiday time, or whatever it is, so we give you kind of that overview of every benefit that we survey for. And then if you need to, you can drill down further, because you'll have the detail from every community.
Thank you. Now, talk to us about timeline. Will we have data that will be useful in the fiscal 2023 budget cycle?
Yes, so depending on depending on how long you take to approve, we need a few weeks to get going. So we're at, what is today? August 18th. So probably after Labor Day, we would start. And if we can stick to our timeline, and I've set that with you up front, we will definitely have preliminary data this year. You will, and if you tell me when you need it for budget, we can work backwards from that. To make sure we
Tomorrow.
at least have preliminary data, so you know what it looks like. We may not have a final report together, but we'll be getting data from the market. I can look at it and say, okay, you looks like you're on par, or you might need to be thinking about making some adjustments. And the other thing that we can do for you is, because your fiscal year is the end of the year, we can put a question in a survey about what are communities doing for the next fiscal year as far as a general increase. So that way, because of what's happening with the economy, you'll know what those peer communities are doing, because I always call it general increase, because it's not a cost of living increase. It really is something else. So we could get that information for you too, if you think that would be helpful.
So we won't have a complete concept, but we will have bits and pieces of the puzzle necessarily during the budget season. We won't have anything definitive during this budget season. Is that? You will have a preliminary analysis. Like, I'll have data. When I say you won't have the report is a narrative, but what I do is it's the spreadsheet that's important. And we should probably, if we start this after Labor Day, by the end of October, we should have some really good information. So you'll have an idea. And, so if you needed to be thinking about a contingency or something to implement, say you say, okay, budget starts in January, we're going to implement in March, you'll have an idea of what you need. You can start calculating impact off the preliminary information, and then it just gets finalized. The preliminary to final is the position classified correctly? Does the data look right? I'll do all that analysis, and then it's really more nuanced to get to the final report. But we should have a good idea, I would think, in that time frame. And then you might say, hey, we're pretty good. Well, because
we need to think.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, I apologize, but my concern would be that, when you look at the 14 hours that's necessary to interview employees and sort of get a grasp of what's going on before our first budget meeting is next week, right? Or
September 12th, I believe?
September 12th. It's within the next few weeks. So will you have an opportunity to, before we get this preliminary data, to interview and discuss tasks and job outlines with each of the employees prior to the preliminary data receiving?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the salary piece and the employee piece they're timing at the same time. Okay. So when I'm giving preliminary data, all that employee discussion will have been done.
Okay, and typically during each budget season up front, we get a salary survey, and that's sort of the, lower end, higher end, and mid-range salaries in each, New York State civil service title within the municipalities throughout Westchester. What is it that's going to be different from this report as opposed to what we see each year with the data that we're given?
So I'm not sure what you're getting, but I think what would be different from my perspective is we will pick our positions that we know we'll find enough. Well, you only have 28, so we would survey for all of them. And then it's the communities that we'll survey from that will be more meaningful because of those financial factors that we'll look at and the ability to pay. So it could be a little bit different. So I don't know what you're seeing now, but that's how we do our analysis.
Because typically we're seeing the entire county of Westchester, and Rye Town is, I think, one of the most unique municipalities within the county and within the state and maybe the country. And I'm a little biased, I apologize for that. But when you look at Rye Town, we are entirely encompassed in 3 different villages. We don't have fire, we don't have police, we don't have a buildings department. There are a number of things we don't do. Will you sort of look at communities that are like ours where, you know, and I don't want to say that we're a small staff, but we are a very small staff. When you talk about the 28 titles, those are 28 employees, and that's, you know, there's not 5 office assistants Spanish speaking or to compare with, or, you know, 5 assistant receiver of taxes, so forth. So we are a one-person crew, each job description. For the most part, I think maybe there's a couple of exceptions, if I'm correct, of people who have the same title. Is that something that you're used to working with? Is this something that you are familiar with?
Yes. So when you do a class and comp study, we're not looking at staffing levels. You know, we're looking at the position. Is it classified correctly? And what is the market paying? So, you know, if you think about your community and I'll give you an example. I had a client in Wisconsin, and I was talking to a public works director, and he thought that he should make the most out of any public works director because he had the most divisions, you know. And he said, well, if I went here, it's different. But okay, that's fine. But it's still a public works director. So we look at the position, and every place is different. You know, you can go to New Rochelle or Scarsdale or Mamaroneck, and the same title will have different nuances to the work. So that's why it's important for us to study Rye to make sure we understand it. But that employee that has that particular title that you were talking about, they may or may not be a competitive candidate in another community, depending on the scope of work that they're performing for you. So it goes to the position, it goes to the title, and then that's what we study. You know, so if a community is bigger in Westchester, they may have more people with the same title, but that's a volume issue, that's a staffing issue, that's not a classification issue. So yes, we do that all the time.
Let me just interject with that. One of the problems that we've had in the last couple of years is fitting in what people do with their civil service titles. Of course, sometimes somebody's doing something that may technically be out of title, and we apply for new titles, and this system, I would hope, would help us classify those people so that we can get the right title for the right person and then pay them correctly for what that title is. Is that how you're looking at it?
I will help you to clarify that. I have heard a lot of stories about civil service in Westchester County, and I cannot be an expert in how to navigate it. But what I can tell you is that we can clarify what people are doing, and then hopefully that can achieve the outcome that you just outlined.
Well, I have to say, oh, sorry, Tommy, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm somewhat biased because I've worked with Westchester County Civil Service, and I've had nothing but great experiences with them. Of course, I've worked with them on the county end, but I think they're extremely dedicated and very good at and knowledgeable at what they do. And this question is, I think, maybe and more posed towards Debbie, as far as, have we checked in with Westchester County Civil Service and seen what they offer as far as, you know, helping us with different services, classification, developing a pay scale, analysis of employee performance? Have we spoken to them about different options or ways in which we can sort of use the Westchester County shared services model as opposed to going on our own and getting a consultant?
The conversations I've had with the people I interact with at Civil Service, they have categorically not gotten involved in compensation levels. I've been told that Civil Service does not have anything to do with how much a municipality pays somebody regardless of the title. I am aware that Civil Service will come in and do a an examination of everyone. I know that the Village of Portchester had that, for example, specifically with the Justice Court, and made recommendations about changes of title. I don't think that that is the core mission of this project. The core mission of this project is to normalize and ensure that people are paid fairly across departments, and give us a tool for understanding what level positions belong in terms of their compensation, and give us a tool for, give the council a tool for understanding what that band is for each job title when you make your decisions about how to change compensation for subsequent years.
But I thought Edie did that 2 years ago, when we had Edie doing the interviews with our employees. I thought that was all done 2 years ago.
That was last year.
Last year, I'm sorry, last
And Eda
year.
McCarthy only looked at the assessment department.
Okay.
And this is talking about a town-wide across the board
Okay, now,
examination.
you're gonna go town-wide. Now, we got 28 people, and you're only allowing a half-hour interviews with 28, half-hour each person. You think that's gonna be long enough? And then to do assigned skill levels and only have 4 hours of pointing out skill levels in a half-hour interview? Is that gonna be long enough?
I think that's a question that I would like to pass to Joellen because she has the experience in doing just that. I would add that a majority of our staff have been through a process that I designed myself about 6 months ago, where they filled out a job description survey, and I've shared that fact with Joellen, and what we will do is use that material to basically make the process a little bit shorter for those who have provided that information. So we won't ask anybody to repeat twice work that they've already done.
But the state already tells us what the requirements are for each position.
The
right?
minimum qualifications.
Minimum qualifications, yes.
While that is absolutely true, because the town of Rye is so small and we do such peculiar set of services to the community, we have a lot of people who wear multiple hats.
No, I realize
So
that.
there's very few jobs at the town that fit cookie cutter nice and neatly into the civil service job title. And that's also something to think about. And we're joined by the county executive,
But
George
I'm also a
Latimer.
firm believer, if people want to go for extra tests and get a different level because they decide to do that on their own, that to me doesn't mean they're entitled to get that pay.
I think that's
okay.
exactly what Joellen was saying just now.
It's,
Right. What
we
she's
can
doing
get
is-
close to it, but it doesn't have, it all depends on the performance, but also it's something that you chose to do, but it's not something that we have to pay out for.
Absolutely true.
Tommy, there's nothing in this that takes any of the power away from the council to set levels.
Well, I beg to differ because, and I am somewhat sensitive to our role here in serving the public. When we talk about this, and maybe our attorney, Mr. Binder, can correct me or let me know if I'm wrong here, but we are paying the public, the town itself is paying for this document. Isn't this document not a public document? Is it not foilable and then can be used for litigation if we, decide to differ in what we pay our employees?
I think I think the document would be foilable.
And that could be somewhat harmful if we were involved in litigation, correct?
It's hard to say on that score. Depends. Depends what the litigation is. It depends. Depends what harmful means. I mean, it's a public document, so it would be subject to FOIL. It's not an interagency communication.
And if we, in our discretion, working with, to the close extent that we do as council people with the staff, feel that, you know, the half hour, and this is not to be an attack on anyone or the work that they do, but a half hour interview is not really reflective or doesn't properly reflect what this person does, and we choose to compensate them more or less. Are we not, you know, open to criticism, not only public criticism, but, you know, legal action?
Are you asking me, Lindsay?
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that I've interviewed thousands of people, and when we go through job analysis, we're looking at the overall skills needed to perform the work. So the way that we approach it is we ask the employee to step away from their job, to think about if they were going to leave, and make a recommendation on the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed to perform the work. So what is the level of education? How many years of experience? We talk about job complexity. We talk about the physical demands. So those factors, there's 9 of them, equalize for every job. Every job has an answer to every one of those questions. So it's not necessarily about the essential functions. While those are important, it's about what gives the job the value in the classification plan. And we've done that very successfully in half-an-hour interviews. So we're not doing a job audit, and we're not doing performance review. We're simply looking at what is the complexity of the job, and then classifying it as a result of several things. One is we ask the employee to fill out a questionnaire and tell us if their job description is accurate. Then we have supervisors comment on that. So we also are having a supervisor review of it. And then we talk with people, and then we classify the job. So there's really a process that goes into it. It's not as if they fill out a questionnaire, we talk to them for a few minutes. I mean, there's a process, and there's a lot of input along the way. And we take all of that into consideration. We read all of that, and we prepare for the interview so we can ask questions and have a dialogue with the employees. And that's the way we've done this in many times, and it's been successful.
But these are also municipalities with a number of people or multiple people serving in the same job classification.
Yes. I mean, I've done studies with 11 people to hundreds of people. And sometimes there's people with their own title, unique, and sometimes there's people that have the same title. And those that have the same title, we usually do a group interview. Because unless the client says to me, I'll give you an example. There's administrative assistant, for example, and one person's in building, you know, and they're issuing permits, and they're really more of a permit tech than an admin assistant. So the client will, because I ask those questions up front when we start the study, I'm like, is there anything organizationally that we really need to focus on a little bit more, and not just assume that all of these people really are doing the same work? And then if that's the case, then we accommodate for that. But I wouldn't know that until I actually looked at everything in Rye, had some preliminary conversations with the town, and then I could modify the approach if we need to, depending on what is actually happening on the ground. So every study is unique to the client. Once we have an initial meeting, understand the expectations, and to see if we have to make any modifications. And like I said, it's a fluid process. It's not a cookie cutter thing, because every community is different. And we want to make sure we understand that when we're studying, you know, your compensation and your classification plan.
Okay, well, very interesting. So now I just wanted to take a sort of a step back when we talk about comparing Rye to other community, or the town of Rye, sorry, not to be confused with the city of Rye, which is a separate entity. But when we look at comparing the town of Rye, which is comprised of, again, entirely encompassed in 3 villages, which limits the amount of services that we provide as a result, to avoid duplicating services. So when we look at the town of Rye, do you have in mind, I know that you said you're working in Westchester, you haven't completed any studies in Westchester, New York, have you?
No.
Okay. So when we talk about this, are there any communities that come to mind that are similar in our situation? that you would compare to based on your work in the county?
So what's interesting about New York, and you know, again, we've worked in lots of different states. When we go to a new state, so the methodology is the same. What differs is the criteria we will identify for comparability, because it has to be sourced. So I have not studied New York State finance to say, you know, as a town, are you giving certain metrics to the state where I can then look at that source data? So like, that's the first piece in determining comparability. And so that's what we look at. We'll look at population, we'll look at proximity, which is Westchester County, and then I have to find other criteria. So without knowing the criteria that's sourced, I mean, I have an idea of what they could be. We then go through an assessment, and then I determine who's comparable to you. So I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which communities are comparable, because I have to go through an evaluation that's a financial evaluation, and then I would recommend it to you and say, what do you think of it? Like, does this, you know, and show you how you're stacking up with other communities, because there might be some that you may not think you are comparable to, but it's actually showing you're very comparable to them. So I don't want to guess, because I don't know. You know, I mean, New Rochelle,
suggest
probably
something.
not comparable to. It's a lot bigger, but you're probably going to be comparable to smaller communities, you know, in Westchester. But I'd have to look at data.
Joellen, let me suggest something. The one thing that towns all have in common is they all assess property. They all have receivers and collect taxes. They all have town clerks. So it doesn't matter the size of the town. They all do those functions. Villages are somewhat different, because generally they do not, in fact, they never assess property. Very few of them collect taxes. Most of the towns in the north part of the county, they don't have villages. In fact, none of them have villages, except for Cortland. And the services that are provided, I think, and Lindsay, taking exception to what I think your train of thought is yes, we don't have a highway department, we don't have a police department, we don't really have a fire department, but we do have the other things, and I'm sure that what Gov will be examining are the comparables that we have with other towns, as opposed to why are we different. There is one town in Westchester that is the same as ours, in that it's totally incorporated, and that's the town of Pelham, which is a totally incorporated area with Pelham Village and Pelham Manor. So they are the most comparable to what we do. I don't know if they perform any of the other functions. I don't believe they have a fire department or a police department, but I'm not sure about that.
They do have a police department.
Town of Pelham
Town of
does?
Pelham.
Yeah. So they have that, but basically they're the only, in fact, they may be the only other town in the state of New York that is comprised totally of incorporated entities. So, no, as I'm saying.
But the purpose is to identify the job.
Right.
And figure out who else has the similar positions and determine that comparability. So we would have to work on that together. And I have to study it first before I can tell you, because I don't know if a city has similar positions. And if a city in Westchester County does, they could be comparable, because we need to get data about the position. It's not necessarily about the service delivery structure. It's about the work that they're performing and whether or not the pay is competitive. Because you could have somebody leave Rye and go to another unit of government that may not be a town if they have a similar position. So that's what we would have to learn. I'd have to learn that, and then I can make a recommendation to you, and then we could talk about that. because we need data about positions. It's not necessarily the form of the structure of the government or what the government calls itself. It's about the position, and that could vary.
And again, I keep coming back to, you know, the deliverable on this item. And when we look at sort of getting the salary scales, how will that differ from what we already have to work with when we get the budget and we have the range of salaries from the high range to the low range of each person in a civil service position, how much they make throughout the county to compare. And oftentimes we do go back and forth, and I've sat through many budget meetings. I know Pam, Jill, Tommy, you've all sat through them. When we take a look and we say, well, geez, the city of Yonkers or, the town of Greenberg, they're at such a higher rate, and then you look at it and you say, well, this is the appraisal office and they have X amount of parcels. That's a high number compared to what we have in Rye. And you look at the low end and you say, gee, this is, the village, this tiny small village, and they only have X amount of parcels, so that's why they're paid on the low end. And so, and I apologize for this, but I'm trying to get to a point where I feel that the information being provided is going to differ or be that much more informative or eye-opening than what we have and what we can get from the Westchester County Department of HR and through
Lindsay,
shared services.
I just want to answer part of what you're asking, because Joellen would have no way of knowing the study that I prepare, that my department prepares for you. Nobody has that but you guys. That's the study that you get every year is created by us.
Correct, and I appreciate that.
So the answer is we obtain from civil service their general salary survey for each title, and then the rest of the analysis is done by us.
Yes, no, and I appreciate it, and I think you guys do a fantastic job, but I also, and I'm a little old school in this way, I love when people from the community, people who are working like you, Debbie, I take your advice and input. I put a very high credit to it because you're working with people every day. You're in the office every day. You see what people do. And, it's hard to take what you see every day and what your input is because you work with people on a daily basis, and then kind of hand it over to a study where you're interviewing employees for a half hour.
Excuse me, Jill has a question.
Would you mind? I just,
Yeah,
I'm not certain that Joellen can answer this, but maybe she has some input. Just you have some slight misgivings, because I have a feeling like perhaps this could go either way. Like I guess my question is, what municipalities, if in fact they are bound to do, let's say we get the results and we see, wow, we're actually paying these people way more than they deserve or comparable salaries. Do we then say, well, there's a freeze on wages because we see, and then conversely, if we see we are on the lower end, are we supposed to collectively figure out where to find the funding? So because now people will have this information as well as us having it. So do you see what I'm saying? I'm just wondering, we have all this information, which is certainly helpful, but what will we do, or will we be in some way bound to do something? Is it just a helpful tool, or how are we planning to incorporate it into our decision making?
I would use the phrase that you just used, a helpful tool. As I said earlier, it's our decision as a board as to what salary levels that we determined for the budget going forward. Mm-hmm. To Lindsay's point, wait 1 minute, Pam. To Lindsay's point, I don't think we're going to be anybody could sue for anything. But the fact is that this is an effort in transparency. This is supposed to be a tool to help us avoid the chaos that goes on in trying to determine the salary level compensation for every employee without any other guide except possibly looking at what other people in the county pay. Mm-hmm. And, looking also as to whether people are being paid properly for the job that they're doing, or they need to, or they should be in a different job title, which we've gone through as well. So this, to me, is a tool for us to use to make the process better and fairer all along the line. Pam?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to start out. Everyone on the council knows I'm the member who's in the private sector. I work for a corporation. And now, having gone through a couple of budget cycles, every year I just shake my head saying, okay, so attracting and retaining. We lost someone this year, and they went to, yes, they got a nice promotion by going to one of our villages. I feel like having a tool like this where we can research, every year we go through everyone's salaries. And every year, to me, it feels like a guessing game. And I feel like there's been a hole in the organization. I talked to Debbie about it. Debbie is the best town administrator, straight out flat, does the best, greatest job of pretty much anyone we could ever have hoped to have work for us. But she's one woman with a small staff. There's a need for a baseline HR protocol information in order to, as I said, attract and retain staff. And the more information we can have to make sure that we have tools at hand to keep staff, reward staff. Look, we're in a recessionary year. What are, Joellen, what are other communities going to be giving as baseline? Are they cost of living increases this year, or are they considered something else? Is that something that we will have in this as a research tool? So,
Right. Yes, I think so, because I think what's interesting right now and what we're seeing is I never talk about a cost of living increase, because if you think about it, for how many years were you giving more than the cost of living for an increase? You're not giving 0.2%, you're giving 2%, So I always call it a general increase. So now if inflation is saying it has to go up 5, 6, 7%, whatever it is, I'm just picking that out of the air. You may not do that. You may say, what are the other communities doing? Because that's our competition for these staff. And we can ask that question and say, maybe it's 3%, maybe it's 4%, maybe it's a little bit higher than what you've been doing because of a recognition of what's happening. But I don't necessarily see it going as what is actually the cost of living. Like I can tell you, working with jurisdictions all over the place, that's not happening. And in some states where there's heavy collective bargaining, and some states are right to work states, that's not happening. So I think in your survey, because you are doing budget for FY23, right? No, FY24, I guess you're in.
No,
FY23.
fiscal 23.
23.
Yeah, so you, we can ask that question. And so that will be some good data for you to find out, of those comparable communities. What are they, if they know, what are they thinking about doing? That will help you.
Joellen, can you address
communities go? We have people jumping to towns from villages, and from villages to towns, and going, right, left, and center. A job is a job, whether you're sizing up or sizing down, you're going for the best opportunity. So my basic question is, what tools are on hand that during budget season, when we're shaking our heads and just our eyes are popping out because it's 10 o'clock and we're still at the mode where we're trying to figure out compensation, can we turn to this? So let's say someone needs a new hire. Like last year, Debbie, I believe we brought in someone as an administrative intern instead of as administrative assistant or associate. Like, what tools are in this program that can, on the spot, basically be a tool for us as we're going through? I think that, to drill down and just say, these are the top most important things that we have heard from our experience municipalities are using this for as they go through their budgeting.
I think that what it will allow you to do is have some flexibility with your classification. So if you're finding that you can't hire a position and you need to reclassify it, you'll easily be able to do that because you're going to have a system now to allow you to do that. However, with that said, there's a discussion to be had, which is a whole nother situation with regard to attracting really hard to fill positions and whether or not you can classify them in order to pay them what the market is saying they should be paid, or you have to do a different type of compensation structure. So that's something that I would learn by talking to you, to say, where are those, you know, pressure points, and, you know, where do we need to focus, and how do we help you get those people and keep them? Because I've talked to other clients about making market adjustments for certain positions until there's a higher supply of people going into particular fields, and then it can back off. And so that might be something which is separate from this, but I can help you with it. Study every year to make sure that you are being able to retain people. So there's a lot going on in compensation. This really is talking about the job, is it classified correctly, and is the pay competitive? That it's pretty basic, but depending on what's happening on the ground in Rye, then I can maybe help you with some other strategies.
You know,
Okay, and then just one more question for me, and I'll mute and be a good girl. Amortization. You said that we would have basically 5 years of access via this one fee, this one like project starter. So this is not just one and done. As we go forward and constituents willing have more budget sessions going in the future, what are our resources from this?
No, I mean, I care about local government. I think that's, if you talk with people that have worked with us, they know that, you know, we support local government. And if Debbie called me in 2 years and said, hey, I just had to classify my first job and this is where I think it should go, what do you think? I'm going to answer that call, that email, if she wants to have a Zoom, you know, because you want to be able to use this system, and it should last you for a long time. So I want to make sure you're comfortable. I've had communities where the manager has left and a new person has come in and said, would you spend some time with me, you know, bringing me up to speed on what the study was about? And this could be a couple of years later, and I'm happy to do that, you know, so that's fine. I don't know if I said 5 years, but I'm happy to answer questions. I mean, we brainstorm with people all the time. Things can change over the years, and I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, Joellen.
you know, not for nothing. Last year, we gave decent raises to everybody. And you're not going to please everybody regardless. Whether we go with the median income or not, whether we're at it or below it, whatever raises we give, there's always somebody that gets upset. That's life, and that's the way it is. So, you know, we do our best on the board, being fair to everybody. But you're not going to please everybody. Whether you go with this company or not, you're still not going to please everybody. So don't try to think you're going to, because it's not going to happen.
I don't think it's a question of pleasing everybody. I think it's just a question, I think Pam put it really, really well, is having a tool that we can use to make our determinations.
We used the median income last year, and we even brought people's salary up considerably, besides the raise, trying to bring people up. And I don't know why we can't do the same thing for all the, you know, yes, it took a little longer for us to do it, but that's our job.
And we
From what
also,
I understand, Tommy, those numbers don't necessarily are all current. I think Joellen has a more scientific approach. From what Debbie said to me, there are municipalities that don't update publicly their salary levels. So we may be going against, you know, a few years back.
well, usually it's a year, right? I think it's opengov.com. You can go online and look at the salaries, and I think the Journal News has a link or page as well, and you can look up to, I think you could find 2021.
I just use the what Westchester Human Resources provides me. I don't research further on opengov.com. There have been occasions when I've gone on opengov.com and the data's been way off. So I think there's a range of accuracy.
There was something that you had mentioned, and and again, I'm trying to parse out the difference between what we have in front of us currently and what we would get. You said that there would be a system for reclassification. And my concern is that sometimes, and at portions of the budget system, we our job as council people is to not only take into consideration the growth and advancement of our employees, but also the need of the town. And, you know, as fiduciaries for the town, we want to encourage our employees to improve and advance. That's a goal. But we don't necessarily want to create positions that we don't have the need for. So do you take that into account? And the second portion of that question is, what would the system for reclassification or title reclassification look like? And I guess the ancillary portion to that for Debbie to answer is, how would that differ from what we're doing now with Westchester County Human Resources?
So the first part of your question is, we look at the job that's being performed, not necessarily what the initiative of the employee is. That is a performance issue. That's not what you need in your position. So I'll give you an example. I have a client that said, we need this job. We will pay for people, you know, in some of the public works classifications to get more licenses, even though they don't need them. We classify the job without it, but it's a succession planning tool, which is separate from classification. So that's why we have the employee fill out the questionnaire, we have the supervisor comment, everything goes to the town, and then we interview people and we determine, what do you need in that position? Not what the employee has. It's not about the individual, it's about the position. So it guards against what you're saying. You know, somebody may have a lot of initiative, and that's great, and that may make them, you know, more promotable in the future. You may want to do something with them for succession planning, but we value the job based on what the town needs today. So that's the way we approach the study. It's not about my background, it's about what is needed for the position. And then the second part of it is okay, so say you classify a job and something comes down the pike and the state says, well, now you have to do this, you know? So now you're like, okay, well, somebody's going to have to do that. And maybe, you know, we have to hire more staff, or maybe there's another job, you know, more job knowledge that's needed, or whatever it is. And you put it on somebody's plate and you say, okay, now you have to do this. And we need to now look at, does it change the value of the job? Because the scope has expanded, does it change the value? That's what you would do for a reclassification. So it's really controlled by the town to say, something's happening here. We have a tool now. Let's verify that it's not affecting the level of the job and the compensation it should earn. So you will have that, but it's very much about the positions of what you need, not necessarily focused on the individual.
Any other comments? What is the feeling of the council?
Well, I guess I have one more question, and it's a brief one. Did we follow up with any of the towns and municipalities that have received completed studies? Did we get any references?
I spoke with a number of Westchester-based officials.
But those studies haven't been completed yet, correct? They haven't received the final product.
Right. You're right. The references that I spoke with were references who have worked with GovUS.
But not on this particular type of study.
That's correct.
Okay. So, and we haven't reached out to any of the municipalities who have received this type of completed study to see what their experience was.
That's correct.
Okay.
Joe, anything else? Tommy?
No, I'm done.
Pam?
Any questions, Pam?
Oh, I think she's on mute.
You're on mute, Pam.
You're still on mute.
I know, it's coughing. No, I'm good.
All right. I'd like to vote on this. I don't know what the feeling of the board is. Starting from my left, Lindsay?
Well, you know, honestly, and I do appreciate the presentation. I think it was great. I think there are questions to explore, but I think on our end, as fiduciaries of the county, I would like to hear and see what some of the towns who have received, you know, the finished product have gotten. And I would also be interested to see what some of the ways Westchester County HR can do for us at a more reasonable level. And, you know, it also helps to facilitate shared services throughout Westchester County. We are a very unique town, and I think for us to do something like that, because we are so unique, it doesn't make sense. And so I'm gonna have to vote no, and I apologize for that.
For me, I'm gonna make it short and simple. For me, it may be something for next year. Now, for this year, I'd rather see that money go to the employees toward their raises, because I think this year the raises are gonna be minimal. So I'm gonna vote no also.
Yeah, it's a toughie because fiscal responsibility is always at the top of my list. Personally, I just like making decisions that are data-driven, and I just feel that the budget process is based so much on personal opinion, and I feel even down the line for the people that will come after me in this position, I like the idea of being able to say the decisions were based on something concrete. So I see the value, although I know it's an expense, of doing something like this, even if it's not, you know, quite what we need for this year, just to get it going, because the longer we wait, you know, the more we don't have it. And I just see, again, the emotionality coming into play this year especially, and I would rather have something concrete to look at. So although I'm always hesitant to spend money, I feel that a cost-benefit, you know, analysis in this particular situation, it would be a worthwhile endeavor and ultimately benefit the employees and us. So.
Pam?
I mean, I am firmly in agreement with Jill here in that this will help make data-driven decisions as we go through the budgetary process. This is infrastructure that we need and can use for years to come that will help us make decisions for the future. I would be a proponent of this.
All right, thank you. Then may I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Jill makes the motion.
Pam?
Pam?
Second.
Thank you. Debbie, please call the roll.
Hope.
Oh, Debbie. That's a commission.
You're having
Hope,
some new job
please call the roll.
responsibilities. Wait, we need.
I'm looking at Debbie.
I
Hope,
defer to the clerk.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe,
Aye.
Councilperson Axelrod,
Yes.
Councilperson Norrie,
No.
Councilperson Jackson,
No.
Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. And I know that we have a divided board on this, but I think the discussion was well worth it. And I think that we've quite well analyzed this, and hopefully we'll go forward. Joellen, I thank you very much. Where's Joellen on the screen?
Yeah.
She's the
Here.
top. Yeah.
Hi, Joellen.
All right,
Congratulations.
thank you, and I
Thank
look
you.
forward to working
And
with you.
let's go forward.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye now.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Welcome.
Resolution to update the Town of Rye Personnel Manual. Debbie, tell us what this is about. I think we probably know.
There are two changes to the personnel manual that are built into this resolution. First of all, within the last several weeks, we received guidance that the state of New York has amended its instructions and created a sexual harassment complaint hotline, and we have been instructed to include that information and the hotline in our personnel manual. You will see that those instructions up on the board. It's also in your packet. And that this announcement is now posted next to in all of our town offices. so that everyone has access to it. So that change is being made in our personnel manual. That's one amendment. We are adding to the personnel policy the wording. For a second there, I thought I had a touch screen, and of course I don't. We are adding wording to the personnel manual that will, that basically does state, this handbook shall be deemed amended to conform to statutory or regulatory changes or changes imposed upon the town by a court of competent jurisdiction. In other words, the next time the state makes a change to personnel manuals or a court decision is made, we will just incorporate that into the manual without necessitating it take up time on the town council agenda to pass a resolution to approve the amendment.
So it just automatically goes in?
That's correct.
Okay.
Obviously, if something important happens, that will always be, or if there's a proposed policy that I'm proposing or David Burns proposes to the personnel manual, that will come before the council. But if we receive instructions from the state, if we receive instructions from a justice court, we will just make that change.
Okay.
One minor thing, just catching it, the last whereas its personnel policy is without an apostrophe. Could you please change that in the resolution, Hope? When you can. Yours is different.
Yeah.
Wait a second, is that the resolution? No.
No.
So I think you may have caught something.
Right here. That's it here.
I just want to mention.
That's the resolution, okay.
George Latimer joined our meeting.
All right, right, as soon as we're done with Debbie, the Town of Rye Personnel Manual, Tommy just pointed out on the manual itself.
You caught that, did you?
Yeah, I caught it.
It's not a park, it's a town.
Yes.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please, Hope.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes, and before we get to the next resolution, I am informed that our county executive has joined us via Zoom. Mr. County Executive, welcome.
Good evening. I've enjoyed listening to the presentation for the last hour or so, and it was very interesting. And
Longer than we wanted, but it was supposed to be 10 minutes.
This is common across many of our municipalities. I just wanted to come on briefly, give you a quick update, give the council a quick update on a couple of issues that are pending so you're aware of it. And then I know you've got a lot of other business to conduct tonight, so I won't be long-winded. First of all, on the COVID front, the numbers have been dropping a little bit over the course of the summer. The most recent statistics we have shows us about 2,200 active cases of COVID. We had about twice as many number of active cases back on Memorial Day weekend, and that was when things were in a rise. We have not had as few cases as we have now since back in April, early April, as the numbers were starting to rise. So the summertime, usually we're outdoors. That usually helps us with reduction of COVID infections. So I think we're encouraged that we're seeing the seasonal drop. There's been a lot of vaccinations. We've lost overall 2,700 people, almost 2,800 people to COVID. We've lost a little over 400 in the last year. That's 400 tragedies, but as you can see, it's a lot less total of fatalities in the last year. And right now, with the number of people that have had almost 300,000 cases of COVID over the course of the pandemic, we're now under 1% in the number of people that have contracted COVID that have died. Right now, we're running a little over 5% of the total number of active cases hospitalized. So You know, the numbers are quote unquote good. We seem to be living with it. We've had, as I think you have had, Rydetown Park and Crawford Park, as we have across the county. We've had as normal a summer as we could make it. You've had events, so have we. We had fireworks up at Kensico Dam Plaza. We've had our ethnic festivals and bicycle Sundays and beaches and pools, as you've had the beach, and no particular spikes attached to them. Monkeypox is the other issue that gets a lot of discussion. As of the last time we looked earlier this week, we had 65 cases of monkeypox in Westchester County. Keep in mind, 2,200 cases of COVID, 65 cases of monkeypox. They aren't really comparable in terms of volume. Monkeypox is a person-to-person, skin-to-skin transmission rather than an airborne transmission, so it's much harder to contract it. Monkeypox is not proven to be fatal, but it is an illness that does have its impact on the individuals. We've been doing vaccinations on Mondays and Wednesdays at our county health clinic, and anybody who wants to get a vaccination can get one at one of those locations. And Westchester Medical Center have been providing drive-through vaccination services. We seem to have done pretty well with Westchester residents, giving out about 1,300 vaccinations in Westchester. New York City has had their difficulty because they have much higher demand. But we seem to be, working with the targeted vulnerable groups, with the laws and some other groups, so that seems to be moving forward. And we've had some concerns about polio. There was one case in polio in Rockland County that was determined about a little over a month ago. That individual was unvaccinated for polio. Most of us are vaccinated when we go to school. Those of us in my age category, anybody who wants to claim similar age, will admit that there was polio vaccinations going on in the late 50s and early 60s in the society. And we've treated it as a disease that we have conquered. But apparently, and whether it's vaccine hesitancy because of COVID, there are some number of young people who have not been vaccinated for COVID, for polio. So we are monitoring it. We're monitoring it in the wastewater, and we hope that that won't be now the third issue that we have to monitor. But it is at a very low level of concern right now. You know that we made buses free fare during the summer. That's going to continue until Labor Day. It's about 2 weeks more in duration. Then we resume the normal fares after that. This was a test case. We could not afford to extend free fares the full year, but by doing it for the 3.5-month period that we did, we increased ridership, got people back on the buses, and we think it was a worthwhile effort and experiment. And it goes with dealing with the inflationary times. Now we're seeing the gas prices come down at the pump. The county, along with the state, has surrendered some of our sales tax revenue to reduce some of the price at the pump, although most of that is the same reason why it went up is the same reason why it's coming down. And that is the commodity out on the open markets. We have suspended costs for civil service exams. People can take civil service exams, no cost, through the end of the year. We had a couple of parking lots on Metro North stations, unfortunately none on the Sound Shore, that the county owned, and we were able to make those free parking lots for July and August. We've added money for the food pantries, which benefit all the food pantries around the county. We, with the Community College Board, froze tuition for the community college for this upcoming year. And we will be reducing the sales tax on home heating products beginning the 1st of December and ending February 28th. So you will not be paying the county share of sales tax when you have an oil delivery or the gas or electric prices that you have during the winter season. But we didn't do that now. That kicks in December through February when we need to start having those prices. Very quickly, we've established a separate app for your iPhone for the Beeline bus system, and we have one also for paratransit. So if you're a user of either of those two systems now, everybody does everything by cell phone. You can get on an app and find out where your bus is and how it's doing. And in the same way that we now have an app to connect with the county police. That's happened. A new flood disclosure form law was put into effect. Landlords now have to disclose flood vulnerability in their apartments so that when a person rents and takes on a lease that they know what they're getting into. We have been working very hard on heroin overdose awareness, public awareness program. We've also made Narcan boxes available at many of our various facilities and homeless shelters to try to deal with that. And we have 2 more airport town hall meetings coming up. One will be on Tuesday, September 6th at 6 o'clock at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. And then the next one is relatively close to the town, right on King Street, Tuesday, September 13th at 7 p.m. It's at Harvest Time Church, which is in Greenwich. So it's a Greenwich-based location. We are trying to reach Connecticut residents, but it is literally across the street from Rhinetown residents as well. For those who want to come out in person, speak out on the airport, we're continuing that series. We will be getting a draft of the master plan out at some point in time later in the fall, and there'll be a lot of discussion about that. So I am a native New Yorker. That's as fast as I can talk. Hopefully that's some information that's helpful. And Mr. Supervisor, members of the council, if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to tackle them. If not, I appreciate the courtesy of stopping in.
Thank you, George. You are always welcome here. And it's a nice break to our meeting. Council people, anybody have a question for the county executive? No?
Just appreciate everything you're doing on our behalf, so thank you.
George, we
It's
appreciate,
amazing work.
Thank you.
to echo what Lindsay said, we appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure to be with you. Have a good rest of the meeting.
You too,
Thank
George.
you.
Thank you for
Take care.
sitting with us.
Have a good day, George.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Okay, resolution authorizing the implementation and funding of the costs of the Otter Creek Bridge.
So as you see the screen shows you a picture of Otter Creek Bridge. We applied.
One of Lindsay's favorites.
Yes, in
One of
Rhinebeck.
Lindsay's bridges.
Yes, I've run over that
Yes.
bridge, so if we can keep it from falling, that would be great. Although I'm sure a lot of people wish it did. No, I'm joking.
Well, specifically, this is the South Barry Avenue Bridge over Otter Creek, technically. We applied for a Bridge New York grant to replace the bridge. And we were one of the very few communities in the state of New York that were awarded, and the process continues. This is the next step. In order for our application to go to the controller, in order to receive authorization to proceed, we must adopt 2 resolutions that essentially say that we understand that this is federal money and that we are agreeing to abide by federal procurement regulations. That's, in short, that's what the 2 resolutions are, 5.1 and 5.2. I can get more detailed if you would like me to.
It also says that we're mandated to fund the upfront costs that could be reimbursed.
That is correct. And every grant I've ever come across is like that.
I know.
So we must fund the projects, and then we will be reimbursed. However, once we have signed these, once we've passed this resolution, and Gary is authorized, if in your decision you decide to allow him to the authorization to sign these agreements, that will be submitted to the Department of Transportation. The controller generally responds within 2 to 3 months with authorization to proceed, and at that point we can start submitting invoices for reimbursement. So we don't have to wait for everything to be done before we start to submit. We can do it along the way.
With the payments, is there a certain payment schedule that they do? Is it like quarterly or monthly?
I have not been informed that there's any kind of a schedule of any kind.
Okay, so you just get the bill, then you send it. You repay it and then you send it out.
That's
And then it's a
that's
question of how fast
exactly
they
what.
turn it around.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the other thing.
Right.
Okay.
Very good.
However, the first phase of this project is design and right-of-way acquisition.
Yeah.
So that first phase is a little over $500,000, which is specified in the resolution.
Now, the right-of-way, I believe there's houses on the left at the end of the bridge going towards the country club. Is that the right-of-way we were talking about?
We won't know that until the design is done
Design,
and it's
okay.
clear. The town actually has the right-of-way already.
Okay.
A certain portion. There's a portion of a garage, for example, which is sitting on town land.
Okay.
So it's not clear what will need to be taken.
Okay. Very good.
And there's also differences, as you well know,
Yes.
between permanently acquiring right-of-way
Yeah.
and just borrowing it, and then
Borrowing
giving
it,
it back.
We rent it from him,
Right.
yes, okay.
There's a garage on the land?
There is.
I didn't know that was, I know there's a garage, I didn't know that was town land.
There's a corner of the garage that's on town land.
Yeah, that happened in Portchester when they did 95. There was somebody who had a garage that was on state land, and they were given 30 days to take everything out. The state didn't fool
Well,
around.
the homeowner does understand that the garage is on town
Yeah.
land.
Has any change, or have we gotten anything anything definitive as far as a timeline for this project, or anything a little bit more? I know it's been somewhat obscure, obviously, because we're still parsing out the design phase of the project, but is there anything a little more concrete? No
Well,
pun intended?
One of the things that's in here is that this is expected that the bridge will be replaced within 5 years of the awarding of the contract. I can tell you my experience with the Bridge New York grant for the Hillside Avenue Bridge, which we are about to complete,
Yes.
is that there are many delays along the way and many extensions of due dates. A lot of them, almost all of them, having to do with delays that happen in the federal agencies authorizing proceedings.
I'm well aware we do it.
Okay.
Yes, I know. We're still waiting for grants to come out that were supposed to come out in July.
When the federal government does their delays, they also extend our time on the completion.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
No, I just, I would like to stay in contact with the Shore Acres Association there, and, because I know they were very interested in kind of keeping up to date with the bridge, and
Oh, absolutely. The Shore Acres Home Association,
Yes.
Homeowners Association,
Association.
and also the Conservancy. There are, the Mamaroneck Beach and Yacht Club is
yeah.
keenly interested
Yes.
in this
Well,
project.
If we could work together and kind of get the stakeholders updated, I'd be happy to work on that with you, and just kind
We
of
should
as
keep
a,
the village of Mamaroneck informed too.
A key stakeholder indeed.
yes.
Yes.
And Jerry and Tom are great, so
May
very lucky
I,
to have them to work with.
may I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank
Is this
you.
for 5.1 and 5.2 at the same time,
No.
or different?
There's
No.
1, 2, and
There's
3.
1, 2,
No,
and
this is
3.
for.
Just
no, no.
5.1 and 5.2.
This is for 5.2 and then.
Oh,
we'll do
excuse me,
another.
you're absolutely right, 5.2 and 5.3.
Yeah.
5.2. Call the roll, Hope?
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. And the second resolution authorizing the staff of the town to enter into a federal aid local project agreement with the Department of Transportation. May I have a motion and a second for that, please?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Jackson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes, thank you. We're up to our report section. The assessor is not present unless she's online.
The assessor is in the board, pardon me, the assessor is with the Board of Assessment Review this evening. She spoke to me in advance. She has no announcements to make and apologizes that she cannot be in two places at once.
We'll have to figure out a way to change that.
You know, that's not an excuse.
Yeah. Crawford Park report. Camille.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Okay, more good news for everyone. Taking a look at how many inquiries or leads we've gotten so far year to date, we are at 309, which averages out to about 39 or 40 a month. We have had 34 leads for next year, 2023, and 40 inquiries, unfortunately, that we had to turn away because the dates weren't available. far as our bookings, those, of course, continue to increase as well. So we are now up to 210 bookings. Now that includes everything that is on the books. It's those that have been executed and those that are coming up. We have 14 events booked for 2023. We even have one for 2024. And we have 13 proposals that are pending. Moving on to the revenue. We're really getting a lot of business here, I have to say. As you know, our full year revenue plan is $205,000. The net revenue to date is $228,000, almost $230,000. And again, by net, I mean that is all the money that has come in, minus the security deposits and the staff gratuities that will be removed from the overall total.
But this, what you're classifying as net revenue is basically the taking out just the security deposit and the gratuity. It's not taking out the hourly cost for the staff.
No, we haven't gotten that far
And,
yet.
or electricity or
No.
overall cost to the town of running the event.
Correct.
So it's the gross revenue. We're not looking at net revenue then, to more correctly quantify it. Okay.
Sorry, I would add that the financial statements coming out, which you'll have shortly, will, we're now creating a Crawford Park page, so you'll be able to see the whole financial statement for Crawford Park.
Yeah, no, that, I would be interested in it, and I do have concerns because I understand it's a park, and I don't want it doesn't necessarily have to be profitable, but I think if we are charging higher rates to residents to use it and pricing people out, I would like to see revenue coming into the town for overall maintenance or to help with the debt service, some benefit for the taxpayer, as opposed to, so I think it's something that I would love to take a look at.
You'll see it every month.
Okay. And as far as determining the staffing level for each event, how do we do that?
It's really done on an event-by-event basis. And what we take into consideration, first of all, is the amount of guests they're going to have, how many locations of the park. We have many events, weddings, for example, that are in 3 different locations. How involved is the setup? I mean, we have to put up, 10 cocktail tables. We don't need a big staff. But if we have to put 30 tables out and 100 chairs, we need the staff to be able to do it. So there's no set formula, but I would say on a small scale, 2 attendants, and then it goes up from there depending on all of those logistical aspects.
And typically, there's one manager on site to oversee it, correct?
Yes.
We don't have, top-heavy structure where we have multiple managers at events.
Oh, no.
I attended the Kiwanis event last month.
Oh, I was on vacation. How was it?
It was excellent. The kids that were there, the young adults that were there helping out did a spectacular job.
Thank you.
They really worked hard. They made sure everything was clean, the garbage can, they did their job.
We are
which is
so
good.
fortunate. We have an incredible staff. Every single person actually smiles when they come in the door. So we consider ourselves very fortunate, and we're delighted to have all of them. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to a number that I do give you every month, but this time I was asked to take a little bit of a deeper dive so we can actually see who are the people that we are, suspense, right? Okay. I'm gonna have to ask for a little assistance because I can't seem to get back to, oh, thank you. I just need to pull that up. Yep. There you go. Okay. So, to date, the dollar amount of revenues that we have waived for the most part municipal events, is $190,500. And we're going to take a look at exactly which groups in the community are using Crawford. First responders, that's policemen, firemen, et cetera. They've had 6 events, and it's $4,600. The Scouts, and that's Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, sleepovers, et cetera. They've had 7 events, and we have waived $6,164. Miscellaneous is just that. I mean, it's organizations that have had one event, for example, like the Friends of Crawford, when they have their concert. And that's what the type of event that would fit in there. Also in there, quite frankly, are some dollar amounts that we have waived for clients for various reasons. And that total is up to $10,000. Board of Elections, they're like one of our best customers, $35,700, and that's with five event days. The Village of Rybrook, $57,700. That includes Rybrook Day. It includes their family picnic, and it includes the camp. So that's the
What about the PBA?
PBA was in the first responders in
Got
that
it,
category. I could break that out, if you'd like to. I could get that. And then the Portchester School District is here almost on a regular basis. I mean, they've been here 42 times so far this year. It's a different type of meeting each time. A lot of times it's just a small group, so they're, using a space on the second floor. Or when they have a much larger group or some type of a seminar, then of course they're down in the Great Hall. Blindbrook and Ridge Street Schools, I've sort of combined. There's only, I think, 3 or 4 events, or 6 events, I should say, that they've had here, and that's $12,000. So that's how we get to the 190. Any questions?
That's very, very comprehensive. It's good to know. But obviously, the operation of the park, even though we like to have events that make money, we also donate time to our communities and not-for-profits. Thank you on that. And how about our charging report?
Charging report is, Scott, do you need to again? Yeah, the charging station report. All right, while you're there, wait, don't go away. Just want to remind everybody, next Thursday night, a week from tonight, we are going to have Funk Salsa Urban out in the Circle and the Great Lawn. It's going to be a really, really tremendous show. I have not heard them in person, but I've seen them online. There's 12 people in this group, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So bring your families, bring your lawn chairs, and have a good time. And then on September 2nd, thank you, we have Gil Paris coming. He had been rescheduled.
The rescheduled one?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's for Tommy.
Yeah, that's for me. Go Paris, good guys.
All right, so, yep, here we
Maybe
are.
Bernie Williams will show up.
Yeah, maybe. He did when I was at the Cowboy North. He
Yeah,
showed up.
yeah. And, interesting, he wasn't going to be available when we postponed it, so we'll see this time. I haven't gotten confirmation either way, but it'll be a great show. And our charging stations, they're kind of the opposite of our events. These have declined significantly since we started to charge a fee. But the good news is we're making a profit. So we have less numbers, but this month, or actually full month July, the profit was $182. So the users are dwindling, but it's still positive for us. And we had talked about it the other day. I mean, if we really want to encourage people to come use the stations, I mean, we could put it on social media. I mean, we could do a couple of different things if in fact you want to encourage the usage.
Well, I see no reason not to encourage it. I mean,
Okay.
the whole idea in the beginning when we didn't charge was to encourage electric vehicle usage. Doesn't cost us anything to put it out on
Right.
social media, and if more people use it, then we make more of a profit, and it's beneficial all the way around.
Then we'll do it.
And then I think the price point is right, because when we did the price point, we went right smack in the middle.
Yeah.
So I
yeah.
think the price point is fine, so there's no need to change that,
Agreed.
so.
Agreed. Okay, we will start putting it out there and let some people know about it. Okay? That's everything I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Camille.
I just
Thank
have
you.
a couple of quick questions.
No,
I'm
you
sorry.
don't. Not
Yes,
really.
me. I'm sorry.
Sure, go
I'm
ahead.
the one. I'm the
It's
troublemaker.
okay.
I was excited to see the signs up for the snack bar. When did that open recently? right?
Last Tuesday.
Oh, great. And how have we been doing as far as?
We are doing really well. I mean, it's too early to start pulling numbers because, you know, we want to make sure that we're accurate in everything that we're doing. It has been extremely well received. We've had 2 days that sales were over $100. So that's pretty encouraging. The Portchester High School band, they're loving having it there. Yeah, they are asking if we're going to have more food items, you know, for lunch or breakfast or whatever, but for now, they're eating everything, they're buying everything else.
And so how much did it cost us for the entire setup?
Don't know. I mean,
Okay.
that's not anything I would have, but I think, you know, in time, when we pull that reporting together, it'll be a little more comprehensive. It'll be like something we're doing with the events, just so we have metrics that we could continue to show. But it's way too early to do anything that's going to be meaningful.
If the snack bar keeps going, goes on the incline, maybe we don't have to have the soda machines out there anymore. This way they have to go to snack bar.
I would have no objection.
I'd like to see what happens, for next year, because it's too soon, we're not gonna get the proper numbers.
Right.
We really should have a whole year, and then we can go from there, and then we might be able to get rid of those.
People are definitely happy to see the signs. It's really been something like, oh, this is great. Oh, wow, when did you open? You know, so they're excited, you know.
How was the point of sale system, how was that set up? Did it run smoothly?
It
Everything
did.
went well?
Now that it's all set up, it seems to be running very well.
Amen.
So, yes.
How long did that take? Do we have an idea of the whole point of sales
Oh,
process?
lengthy. It was a
It
lengthy
took a
process, yeah.
And I understand we had to kind of add or rewire our connectivity to reach out there.
We could have used Wi-Fi. We have it, it's strong, but it's not secure enough.
So we had to-
And we have Cat5 wires pulled, but we needed to pull some more.
And how much did that cost overall?
I don't have the numbers for you, but I will next month.
Okay, great. That would be.
I also haven't gotten invoiced yet.
Oh, okay.
So we're not gonna be able to, like they were talking about doing a cart, then, doing the Wi-Fi with the POS on the Wi-Fi, so you're not gonna be able to do that then?
We will be walking before we're galloping.
Yeah, okay. No, I know, baby steps. I realize that.
What we are set up to do is not only, when the pavilion is being rented for a private party, we are set up to change location over to the mansion.
Okay,
As we had discussed. So
Okay, good.
we'll have an alternate location so that we can still be open on a weekend.
okay. Yep, sounds good to me.
And then one of the days, we did use the back porch,
Okay,
so.
that's
Will we
good.
be able to bring it down to the playground at all?
Well, the back porch is pretty close to the
Yeah,
playground.
it is, it
Yeah.
is, it is. Okay,
I discussed with,
The walking's good exercise for me.
my imagination is running wild, and I talked with Camille earlier this week about setting up like a Peanuts style doctor's in, like the doctor is in booth for our snack bar, which might be kind of fun for the kids.
that's good, that's good.
It could work.
All right,
Thank you,
Vic is
everyone.
not here.
Nope.
He's on vacation. I don't know how we let him do that, but nevertheless. Dave, finance report? Do you have anything to say for yourself?
We were getting data a little later because we've added the new class of in rem, so those are liens that have been outstanding for 2 years. They were filed in 2020. We've only added 4 new properties that are outstanding for 2 years to the class. Normally, it's like 20. So the
Pardon me?
normally it's like 20 properties that get added that are, you know,
That's
been in-
because we started early, because I've directed the town attorney to send out letters, and we're collecting money that way. And we're doing a good job. Also, on the in rem list, it's not reflected because it came in after the month began, but the one you see on Willett Avenue, that's paid already as well. So the class of 18 only has 1 property left, and that will be in court.
Right, so that one property paid August 15th, and these reports are usually the month prior.
Right.
And it just cleaner ties to the general ledger that we report at month end, you know, that paid.
Right.
There's a note there, but that it was paid in the following month, so that will come off next month. So, you know, with the 4 new, there'll be 9, and some of the older ones are just land, and some old properties that were up for auction, but they're just land. But overall, our receivables, you know, as of July 31st, including the lien that was just filed. So as a comparison point, when you look at July 31st, we filed, all liens were filed at the end of July. They totaled between the county, the school, and the 2 villages, 1.8 million. The prior year, it was 3.1 million. That included Doral Arrowwood delinquent taxes, but that's where we are, and our overall receivables as of July are